This week on Intrigued, full effect.
Here it is, 2026, and I've still been asking for the FBI to even look at some of the things in the areas of Dane's case. For instance, the ransom that early on in Dane's case that I had that they had Daniel, for instance, captive and broken his legs and these type things. And I can't get law enforcement or the FBI to even take consideration of those aspects.
I'm Chandrea Thomas, and welcome to episode 62. In this podcast, I talk about curious cases, disappearances, and other stuff. And today, I'm catching up with David Robinson, the father of missing Daniel Robinson, who disappeared on June 23rd of 2021 at his work site out in the desert of Buckeye, Arizona. Now, I have covered this case several times in the past, but today I wanted to catch up with David to see exactly where his search stands right now. This is what happened. Oh, hey, David, how you doing? It's good to see you. I know it's been a while since we've chatted. It's been almost a couple of years, actually, since we've talked about your case. Just checking in and wanting to know how things are going right now. I know the last time we talked, it was we talked about, like, I remember putting video out of when you guys were going and checking into some there was like an underground water thing that you guys were checking, some bones that were found and some other things like that. Also, I know you've run for Congress, you've done all these different things, so I just want to touch on everything that's happened since we've spoken to each other last. So welcome back, by the way.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so where are things today with Daniel's case?
Yeah, thank you again. Well, the case right now is pretty much at a slow crawl, I can say, because I'm still pushing law enforcement. One of the handicaps would be that I'm now back in South Carolina. I'm not as in person in Arizona as much as I used to, and so not having that foot on the boots on the ground, I like to say, I kind of had to push law enforcement from a long distance. It's been very challenging doing it that way. But right now, in Dane's case, I'm still trying to get the forensics that I've been asking for since July the 22nd of 2021. Still trying to get some of those things done. We did do a custody exchange with law enforcement where they gave me a lot of promises of things they would do. There's a new detective in Daniel's case, and hopefully I can, get some more pressure on them to complete that work that they promised they said they was going to do.
Mm-hmm. So there is a new detective on the case. I know you were trying to get the FBI to get involved. Whatever happened with all of that?
Yeah, the FBI have never come into Daniel's case. I'm very disappointed because we already know what was happening in the Galtree case. I don't want to bring up someone else's family, but it's very important that every family get that kind of attention in the case. So here it is, 2026, and I've still been asking for the FBI to even look at some of the things in the areas of Daniel's case. For instance, the ransom that early on in Daniel's case that I had that they had Daniel, for instance, captive and broken his legs and these type things. And I can't get law enforcement or the FBI to even take consideration of those aspects. Only the things that, of course, law enforcement is talking about right now, all the searches and all the information that we know about Dan's case that came from my private investigator. I'm still trying to get the FBI to look into certain parts of Dane's case, especially the proximity to where Dane's vehicle was found. That's right there, a few hundred feet from federal land. So those things are important.
Yeah, I imagine so. And so when it comes down to the searches, I know that's frustrating for you. I'm sure for a lot of families who want to have attention drawn to their cases. I mean, but I will say this. I do know that you are out there, but you're really pushing very, very hard to keep Daniel's story, out there. How has that been for you as far as, like, it's been some years now, which is another question I'll ask you about in a little bit. But how has it been as far as getting your reception or your experience with, dealing with the media and with, having to try to keep his story out there? Has it been more difficult? Has it gotten easier?
Well, it's very difficult, but if it wasn't for the love of the public, those who follow Dane's story, that shares his story and keep it alive, yes, it would have Daniel's story would go under the radar, and also that would, in my opinion, cause it to be called a cold case. A lot of people are already trying to call it a cold case. I refute that because we do have a lot of information and things. Like I said, just if law enforcement was to just do the job, they can bring new leads in Dane's case. But yes, it's been very difficult to keep it into the mainstream media, of course, and some of even the local. But yes, with the population of the people who actually, the grassroots that's actually sharing Daniel's story, I really appreciate them because, like I said, that kind of keep Daniel's story out there as long as I can.
Hmm. And when it comes to the actual searches, how many have you had, I guess, in the past year or so? And how has that been going? Because I know I've been keeping up with you on socials just to kind of see what's going on to make sure I know. How is that right now?
Well, the last search I had was on April the 12th last year, 2025. You probably remember Gabby Tito's father, Joseph, joined me in that
Mhm.
search. But that search was really, it was 50. It was the 50th week of searches for Daniel. That was the last search I have done coming forward so far. That's because that was even a struggle just to get the funding I need to do that search for one thing. The other part is I want to make sure that when we go back out there again, I have some leads to follow. And that's why I'm pushing law enforcement really hard to do the work so we can come up with some new leads and things that give me some specific points and places that we need to search. But I do have some that need to be searched, but going forward is more so trying to be smart with the funding because it's lack of thereof. So have to try to be real smart when it comes to search of a day, though there are some areas that need to be searched.
And that leads me to my next question. As far as like leads and things like that, have you guys still had some trickle in over all this time?
Well, only things I have is, of course, people would say, "Hey, I think I've seen your son here. I think I've seen your son there." Of course, for me, don't have a private investigator in the case any longer. I have to go follow those leads up by myself. They don't turn out, they don't fan out. A lot of times, the issue I've been having is when people say that they a lot of times don't take the picture of the person. And then there was some that were some pictures of people. Yes, of course, that wasn't Daniel. Once I look at those pictures and also call some of the stores, for instance, to talk to managers and things from afar. It's kind of hard to try to do things from South Carolina and it's happening in Arizona. So, but yes, we do get some leads still, a lot of interest, and people still try to look around and see if they see someone or kind of help me out. So I really appreciate that part.
Have the tips, and if you can say this, I don't know, but have the tips primarily just been in Arizona or have they gone outside of the state?
Outside of the state as well. The only two states that I hear get most of the leads from is California and Arizona. The two places there, like Flagstaff in Arizona. One area was I think it was Paradise, California. I think that's the name of
Mhm.
it. But some of those areas in those surrounding areas, close to the border of Arizona and California.
Mhm. Now, just jumping back to the well, what were you guys able to discover from the well when you did that search in there?
Yes, we had found out well, we was calling those searches well searches, but actually it was mines too. But
Mm.
we had two wells that the one that Daniel was last seen, but then there was one north. But then we had two other uh, mines that we thought was wells. So once we try to go down into those, one that still haven't been searched fully, but the one that we was able to, we definitely found out it was a mine. Of course, we didn't get anything from that so far. When I say so far, we only can go but so far. Law enforcement, we need Bureau of Land Management to go down and get those kind of permissions to go deep down into those mines. And also the other one, they haven't been searched at all. So yeah, it's really things like I say can still be done in Dane's case. It's just that having the resources to do it is another thing.
Hmm. And let me ask you this. I know over time and talking with people, over the years who've had missing loved ones, and some found, some still looking. How are you guys as a family? How are you holding up through all this? I know, you're being strong through it all, but I know it's got to be days where it's just impossible to even mentally manage.
Yeah, it's like that every day. I talk to people all the time. People have to understand, you have to miss a loved one, you're always on limbo. The times I stay so busy, it helps in certain aspects so I don't have to sit there and think. But every night, for instance, we have to slow down and things like that. You're in limbo. You don't know if your loved one is alive or they're not here any longer. But your hopes is always going to be that they're alive and you have an opportunity to find them. So those things are really hard to deal with, especially when during the holidays and stuff. That's always a reminiscence on the birthdays and this everything, this the everyday and also the holiday things really push you to that point where you kind of really thinks about your loved one a whole lot and missing their voice and this certain aspects. Those things are always prevalent, always there.
Hmm. Let me ask you about the his vehicle and some of the evidence. Have things been returned to you guys as a family, or does law enforcement still have all of it?
Well, if you remember, July the 19th, that vehicle showed up. July the 22nd, roughly, law enforcement gave me everything from that scene. They didn't do any forensics work or anything. They put them all in an evidence bag and marked it for safekeeping, which means that they didn't do any testing on these items. They felt that Daniel was out there with no clothes on for over 30 days. He's coming back for his things. So they gave it to me. So I held on to them until, like I said, April the 12th of 2025. Think
Mm.
about 2021, 25. I was able to convince the Buckeye Police Department to take these things back into their custody because I'm paying for bills. I paid for bills in Arizona and paying, take care of my home here in South Carolina. It's impossible to do that for many years. And so I had to get them to agree to do the work, get those things out the storage units. And they did that. So they have it in their custody right now. We did the proper custody exchange of those items. We used body cam. I used my own footage. We signed off, those type things, go through the whole process. So right now, I'm just waiting on law enforcement to do the work they said they was going to do.
Hmm. And actually, that's what makes me ask my next question is how is that relationship? Because I know it's been a little touchy.
Yes,
It was touchy in the beginning, and I know there's been some struggles with that over the years. Do you feel like it's getting a lot better now?
Chandra, I was really, really hopeful in 2025. 2024, I was very hopeful when I found that Daniel Case had a new detective. His name is Justin Adams, and I called Detective Justin Adams once I found out that Detective Biffin was long, long on his case, and he sounded like he was really helpful. Matter of fact, like I said, for that search of I had on April the 12th, I already talked to him about that. He said, "Yeah, we'll come out there to help." I had a lead that I needed law enforcement to specifically do on that search. And they was able to set that up with me. So that was really promising. I said, okay, here's a restart. Here's a restart
Hmm.
between my relationship and the Buckeye Police Department. At least I thought it was. And again, when I got to Arizona on that week of April the 12th, I spoke with Detective Adams on April the 10th. And like I said, that's where the agreements came in. That's where we was able to do that custody exchange and those type things. And so my attitude was that, hey, you know what? We got a new detective. He came out to that search. He's coming to that search at that point. We can get some things done in Daniel's case. But like I said, the report I had to give everyone now is they gave me those promises, but here it is now, 2026, and none of the things they said they was going to do has been done. So they're just holding on to those things, and there's no process being done. There's no forensics being pushed looking for new leads. So right now, I'm waiting on a FOIA request so I can go back into Arizona and put pressure on Detective
Hmm.
Adams. Hopefully, they can do the right thing.
Wow, that's really upsetting. I mean, for you to even have to, I mean, you think things are going to get better and then you don't get any type of results that you're hoping for. I know that let's get into your run for Congress really quickly. I know you want to make some major changes. So tell me, why you decided to run. I know it's missing persons oriented, but can you just kind of clarify all of that?
Yes, it's definitely for Missing Americans. That's why I started Daniel Ross Foundation when I was out there in that desert because I want to help as many families as I can. One of the issues I have in Daniel's case, and that's not just our case, but it's many many American cases. But personal Daniel's is my first priority. So in Daniel's case, we couldn't get we to this date we don't have the cell phone pings that could really give us all the information we need what happened that day. And one of the issues that comes with that is law enforcement always say, and they will tell you, it's because of the laws and also the policies. A judge would not sign off. It had to be a warrant. So a judge would not sign off for cell phone pings if it's not deemed a criminal case. And so that's a roadblock for many families and many families like my family need those cell phone pings. So while I was in Arizona, on my, I'm lucky I got in sleep, but I used to study really hard, try to figure ways around those things. So I went to these state senators there in Arizona who then thought it was a great idea. We can probably try to find some legislation to try to make it easier for families and law enforcement to get this data. Um, called a big meeting with telecommunication companies. Those telecommunication companies, everyone, if you got one in your hand, they was in this meeting. So we had this meeting with the telecommunication companies. Of course, they hide behind their private policies. They're hiding behind that, like I said, getting warrants and things like that. To my, I really was disappointed that the senators were unable to come up with anything. So I did have a personal meeting with T-Mobile Sprint. That was the company that had ran Daniel's cell phone at that time. And they also was doing the same thing as the rest of them. They kept standing on their privacy policies. So I told them I'd come back through their back door, meaning that I'm going to run for U.S. Congress because I was right there trying to understand ways that I can get around this dilemma. And I did it. I came up with a solution, and so I said, you know what? I wrote a bill. I took this bills. I ran the 2024 to take this bill to Congress. I was hoping and really thinking I would win that race for Congress. I didn't win. I lost that election, but I still have that bill for the federal law because I tell you, millions of Americans need this law. So what I ended up doing was rewriting this law, a version of it, to fit South Carolina's law and also fit Arizona's law, which is being pushed right now in the state of South Carolina. But that's the reason why I started running for Congress in the first place was to get this bill implemented in the U.S. Congress and get it pushed because this bill will help families. It helps give law enforcement and families a new tool to find a missing loved one to get these cell phone pings, and also while protecting our privacy rights and giving the telecommunication companies immunity for any lawsuits that anybody would try to come up with. And so this law will help millions of Americans because we have 600,000 Americans go missing. That will help Americans get these answers. So that's what the run for Congress started from. Of course, can't just run just for that one issue, but that's what pushed me to actually make that step.
One of your main things. So at this point in time, what's next, I guess is the question. From that standpoint, is your political career over? And then aside from that, with the search and for Daniel and everything, is there anything in the works for you at this point?
Yes, all of it. I'm still pushing the Daniel Rosa Foundation to do the work that I really needed to do for families, trying to get people to join the foundation because we need people. Also, my campaign, I'm pushing that because, like I said, we have 600,000 Americans go missing every year, 3,000 a day. I want to find solutions. I do have plans. I have a new bill that I'm working on right now that's surrounding the Epstein files or Epstein cases and things like that, and tie those things into what's happening with our missing Americans. So I'm pushing for that. But I am running here in 2026 for U.S. Congress, and I have a primary on June 9th, and then I go into the midterm elections on November 3rd. But I'm still pushing for that. But as in for Daniel, once I get past this filing I have at the end of this month, I'm pushing to go back in Arizona, like I said, to get this pressure. I already started a pressure campaign. I did some lives and podcasts to talk to my grassroots movement to say, hey, keep writing those letters and keep pushing that mail-in protest because I will be back in Arizona hopefully next month to put that pressure on Buckeye Police Department to get the work done.
So at the end of the day, you're a father, a family that won't give up. That's number one. Number two, you won't stop with what you're trying to accomplish here. And at the end of the day, what would you say you've learned? I mean, it's quite the life of coming out of retirement. You just retired and all this other stuff. It's really kind of wild how your life has transitioned and turned into all of this. What would you say to people who, unfortunately will be at some point, I hate to say it, but experience a missing loved one? Like, what have you learned and what would you say to those people at this point?
Well, the biggest point that I would say is, try your best not to give up on your loved one, because as soon as you kind of let your foot off the paddle, that loved one case can turn to a cold case really fast. I know that everybody don't have that same strength, so I would never ever tell anybody to do exactly what I've done, to keep pushing for many years. Everybody have their limits, but that loved one is actually dependent on you. So if you can find other family members or anyone else who want to go the distance, allow them to go the distance because like I said, I've seen cases where we see what happened to Jessica Nunez or her daughter Alicia Navarro,
Mm-hmm.
who's been missing for 4 years, and here it is. They're back as a family again. So it's possible, but you got to keep on pushing forward. One thing I say to encourage encouragement, you have to encourage yourself sometimes, and that's very difficult. But if you want to go to a distance, like I said, to try to be an advocate and try to help other families, I think for me personally, the saying sometimes it's a duty to try to help others along the way, and the way to do that is whatever you learn, share it with others. Like you're saying, Chandria, that's sometimes that families need to know something. That none of us have a book that says when we have a missing loved one what to do. Well, I did create one, but no one that knows when it happened what to do first and how to handle certain things. So whenever we share, as families sharing our experience, we have another family. Somebody who may not have a missing loved one yet hear that story or hear your advice, and then here it is, they have a missing loved one. Now they know what to do. So yes, it's important to push
Mm-hmm.
those.
If people want to help you moving forward with all of this, how can they do that?
Well, I wear many hats,
Mm.
so first thing I'll say, if you know anything about Daniel's case, please reach out to me, 803-200-7994. You can also reach out on the tip line. Please help find Daniel at yahoo.com. But if you know anything, please reach out to me. And it's about time for that person to speak out. And anything I will keep you anonymous through the tip line, you name it. But at the same time, to help me continue on Daniel's case, I still need those mail-in protests. Go to pleasehelpfinddaniel.com, learn how to do that. Still sign a petition. Still, if you can, get the flyers out for me. You can request those. I can send them out to you, or you can print them yourself through the website. Those things will help on Daniel's behalf. Join the Daniel Rawson Foundation. We definitely want to help other families. So please do that. Reach out to me the same way to get them on board with that. Also, for the campaign, I am pushing Daniel Robinson's law. That law is really important for many families. So I need the support. If you have your family member who definitely need these cell phone pings in your loved one's case, I need families to testify pretty soon when it hit the Senate floor. So please ask me about that, and we can join together and take care of those things as well. But also, again, funding is very, very important to everything I do. So please look out for me funding wise. I would like to get back in Arizona. I would like to win my elections. I would like to get the Daniel Rawson Foundation movement. So it's a whole big old grassroots thing that I'm trying to do and keep going.
If you were able to say something to Daniel, what would that be right now?
Well, Daniel, I'm hoping that he's in a position where he can hear what I say, but he know me. I'm not giving up. I'm a father who don't give up on my child, my children. I love him, and he know I love him, and I'm looking forward to have our 2 hour talks again. Things like that. I'm not walking away from the situation. I'm going to get the answers that I'm looking for, and I will bring my son home. So if he's listening, he know that I love him, and I love you, Daniel, and you know that.
If you are interested in helping the family in their search, I'll have details on that in the description box of this episode. And if you do have a case that you want me to check out, just visit me on the Intrigued Full Effect website or email me at intriguedfulleffect@hotmail.com. Until next time, be safe and stay true. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the Intrigued Full Effect, Curious Cases, Disappearances, and Other Stuff podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the host. The primary purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. The host of this podcast assumes no liability or responsibility for any activities in connection with opinions shared in the podcast. The podcast and blog associated with it shall not be used in any legal capacity or as a basis for expert testimony. Any copyright material in the podcast is approved by the owner or is part of the public domain. Music by Pond 5.